Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Lock Shop. Happy New Year. Nielson and Hustler back with you once again. This is the first thing I've done since Spengler Cup, buddy, so I've been kind of laying low for the last few days. It feels good to be back inside The Lock Shop, my man.
Well, listen, I'm glad you're back because after an incredible 2022, killing it all year long, you leave. I 1 week of doing full picks without you. I go 0-4 and then started off colder than the Winnipeg winter with the daily picks. However, I did guarantee a win yesterday. Vegas came in, spent a lot of time late last night going over the board, and I'm hopefully that was just a reminder that you know, there's ups and downs in this game, but back on the way up. And listen, I can't wait for the playoffs. I will say this, I know we're going to bring Pat in. It is just good to be able to actually talk about the games, focus on football, knowing that Damar Hamlin seems to be miraculously coming around. I mean, the reports out of Cincinnati this week of his condition have been, you know, getting more and more optimistic. And the last couple days, I think for everyone involved, moving on one of just the scariest nights in NFL history. And the fact that it happened in one of the, if not the biggest game of the year, under the bright lights, standalone game, Monday Night Football, and everything that came with it, it really has been unprecedented. But first things first, Damar Hamlin's going to be getting better, which is great. And we've got one more slate of games, and we're still waiting to find out exactly how the playoffs are going to work in the NFL. I can't remember anything that we can even compare this situation to.
Yeah, it's wild. I was on, I guess Monday, I was traveling back from Switzerland, and I was trying to keep tabs on the game, and I land in Calgary, and I look, I go to check the score, and I see postponed. I'm like, postponed? Like the weather? Like what's going on here? And then I hopped online and I saw what happened, and then you see the video of it going down, and just bizarre situation. I mean, but Huss, you said it. The last 2 or 3 days, it's been progressing definitely in the right direction. So luckily for him, the right people were out there on the field to save his life, essentially. So it's it's a miracle. It's a miracle.
You know, it is, and it's I mean, listen, it started off so ominously, and listen, I know there's a lot of people in situations like this that want to blame someone. They're going at whether it's the NFL or they starting the game again. I mean, they needed time to actually wrap their heads around what was happening. First and foremost, after saving the guy's life on the field, and then apparently reportedly again in the hospital when they first got there. So, you know, I think that the dust is settled on that. You know, we've heard great things from the Damar Hamlin family about where he's at right now. And now it's a matter of finding out the fairest way to have the AFC playoffs go ahead. And obviously all the effects of that coming in on week 18. And listen, I'll just say this, and I know this is one of those things you didn't want to really talk about it or bring it into the group chat until you figure out what's up. But I will say this, Dusty, from a fantasy football extravaganza perspective, the fact that this happened on Monday Night Football of championship weekend with two of the best offensive teams in the league created an issue for leagues, for commissioners that we've never seen before with, let's face it, I'm going to say conservatively over $1 billion tied up just in home leagugues around. And I mean, it's easy to sort of split a league when it's, you know, $100 a guy. I mean, I'm not in any really big high stakes fantasy things, but there was probably some real tough decisions for thousands and thousands of dollars to people. And listen, shout out to the commissioners. They don't get enough love throughout the season. And this was a really unfortunate situation, but hopefully easily resolved in most leagues.
Yeah, like I listened to a podcast yesterday that was kind of talking just about the different options that you could do in your league and what other guys are going to do. And in the one league, I'm commissioned a few of them. A few of them, it looked like it was a done deal anyway, so just going to award a winner there. And my one league, it was still kind of hanging in the balance. And I saw people say, well, you just take the Bills and Bengals next games, but then they might not mean much. So then you go to the playoff game, and that's too far down the road. So in my one league, the guy who's leading right now and was projected to win by a few anyway, I'm going to give him the crown of champion, and then they're going to split the $600 or whatever it is between first and second place. So, I mean, hopefully you don't have a bunch of people being idiots in leagues that there's really not a lot on the line. But as you mentioned it, buddy, there's some high stakes leagues where there's like hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, and I would not want to have to make that decision.
Well, I'll say this, not only is there high stakes leagues, but let's face it, even low stakes leagues, there's also fantasy football hardo guy every now and then that, can't really wrap his head around the fact that some things are bigger than your week 17 matchup with the Killers. Anyways, I said this at the end of the day yesterday, talking about it on Winnipeg Sports Talk, just happy that we can be having the conversations about football this weekend, about the playoffs, about going forward. And I don't know that those would have been very easy to have if we didn't have such good news on Damar Hamlin. So week 18, here we go.
Yeah, and let's bring in Pat Gregoire from Coolbet. You can find him on Twitter at @PGreggy. Pat, I know it's a tough way to kind of hop into a conversation, but it is trending in the right direction. You're a big Bills fan. I'm sure the entire Bills Mafia was rattled over the weekend, and it was set up to be a huge game, obviously. Huss said it. I mean, basically the game of the year, and then a tragedy like that happens. In the end, I guess everybody's just fortunate that things are heading in the right direction here.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable, just crazy scene. I'm sitting on my couch. Like you said, biggest game of the year. Like I had for the first time since probably the KC game, Huss. Like I had like pregame jitters as a fan, and you sit down, watch the start of the game. It looks like it's going to be a classic, and then a freak accident that you just never think could happen. And when you saw the faces of Josh Allen and Trey White and how distraught they were, you knew this was more than just a concussion or even something that was quite serious like Ryan Shazier injury. You knew that this could have been life or death. And again, Haas, I heard you say, in those situations, everyone really wants to start, pointing fingers and say shame on the NFL for the 5 minutes and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we just got to be happy that Hamlin's trending in the right direction, that, CPR was able to be administrated right away, like truly life-saving. And that just goes to show how important, getting your CPR training is if you're involved in sport or even just as any everyday person. It is really, really valuable. But football guy of the absolute century, the first thing that he asks is, writes it down on paper, who won? Like that is just unbelievable that was the first thing on that guy's mind. But prayers still going for Hamlin, but man, the last 24 hours and a bit, it just seems like everything's trending in the right direction, which I think also, and I know it is just a sport, but I think that's going to help the Bills play this weekend, because if there was a lot of uncertainty around him, I really, truly don't know how those guys could go on that field and play. I really don't. And I know it's still going to be difficult for them, but, them at least knowing he is, they had a team FaceTime with him today. So I think that's going to alleviate a little bit of those pregame thoughts of like, oh my God, here we go again. But, again, you can't put yourself in their shoes, but it's great to see everything is starting to go the right way. Still a long ways away, but we're in the right path here for Damar.
The fact that we're sitting here on Friday talking about Damar Hamlin FaceTiming with his teammates is just amazing. And it, I think it gives us all, the comfort to know that, he's going in the right direction. We can actually focus on things that seemed pretty damn trivial on Monday night when he was having his life saved. All that being said, Bills guy, Chiefs guy, I mean, there's so much to this in this decision. And I mean, listen, I think I can speak for most Chiefs fans saying that, definitely wanted that number 1 seed, but didn't want to get it under these circumstances for obvious reasons. And, it's unprecedented. And really, I mean, the Bills had the opportunity. I mean, I'd sort of picked Cincinnati in this game more, I think, a heart pick, hoping that would open the way for the Chiefs to get the 1 seed. But with the game not being played, it puts the NFL in a really awkward situation where you can't really do right by everyone. But it's also a huge missed opportunity for the Buffalo Bills, who controlled the number 1 seed if they were able to beat Cincinnati and beat New England this week. So it sounds like if the Chiefs win, tomorrow against the Raiders, they'll have the number 1 seed. But I guess they're voting today on a tweaked AFC playoffs, which could include a neutral site AFC championship game if it is the Chiefs and Bills. Pat, that might be a good place to meet up. I'm just saying right now.
I would be lying if I said that wasn't the first thing. You don't have to deal, with the Buffalo weather. You don't have to deal with the KC travel. Like, I'm hearing Detroit was an option, but this just kind of goes to show you and I'm sorry, Dusty, the faith that Ford Field had in the Lions, that they were so confident they were going to have a home playoff game. They've already started in planning late January that they're going to fix the turf, but so Detroit's not an option, but I'm curious to see what they do. And again, say what you will about the NFL. Do they always make the right choice? No, they usually don't. But you can tell right now, this is like main concern. They want to make sure everything is done properly. It wouldn't be fair to either of these teams to have to go into a playoff game on short rest or whatever they decided. So I think this is the right choice. And you're not going to please every single side when it comes down to it. This is such a crazy, unfortunate circumstance. And I think the majority of the parties do understand that as well.
I just put it in Vegas. We can all go to Vegas and watch the AFC Championship game in
Problem
Vegas.
solved. There you go. Done.
Yeah.
Simple
the
solution.
Raiders aren't going to be involved. That's definitely an available stadium right now. I had heard, I'm not sure if this is just the power of Pat McAfee or the fact that it's sort of in between, but Indy had been rumored as a possibility for the game, sort of similar travel on both sides. You have a controlled climate. And that's the one thing. Do you have it outdoors? Do you have it indoors? I mean, the outdoors, if you're in Buffalo, might be a big a help, or even in Kansas City, to be honest. Or do you put it outdoors in a place like Miami where it's going to be nicer and, you might not have the weather? I have a feeling the league probably will go to a dome, a controlled climate. Listen, because again, we're talking about a potential Chiefs-Bills game, and the Bengals will have a lot to say about this, and there will be other teams. But if we got to that, what is the NFL like? Points, and I think you'd be guaranteed to have one of the games of the year if you put the Chiefs and Bills in a dome with the trip to the Super Bowl on the line.
1,000%. I'll be honest, before all this madness, ensued with rescheduling all that stuff. I'll be honest, Cincinnati scared me as a Bills fan. Especially, and it should KC as well, especially in an outdoor game, like in Buffalo, if it's snowy, believe it or not, I think it goes advantage Cincinnati with the fact that how well they can run the ball, with the way their defense is structured. Yes, Buffalo is, quote unquote, used to playing in the cold, but with the way that their offense is built, that's why I know I'm going to get roasted by Bills Mafia for this. I know there's a small percentage, but I said, when they build this new stadium, have a retractable roof, because the way that Josh Allen in this offense plays, I think it's better for them to be inside. And I agree with you. Cincy, again, I'd be afraid to play them wherever, to be honest. But if it's KC outside, I would be a little more comfortable. But if it's in a dome, it's going to be hopefully a rematch from what we saw last year in that playoffs. One of the greatest games I think I've ever watched.
The one thing that I'll say, and I'm going to get to this when we get to our picks and our best bets, is this game for Kansas City tomorrow against the Raiders is massive, because even regardless of home field in that game, the one thing about the 1 seed is, if you believe, as I do, that there are 3 super elite teams in the AFC, getting the 1 seed, not that whoever comes out in that 4 spot is going to be any of a pushover. I think the Chargers are a scary team, Ravens, but to not have to go through both, if you're Cincinnati, not to have to beat Buffalo and Kansas City, or vice versa, a huge, huge benefit to the Chiefs if they end up in that spot, or if they don't, presumably the Buffalo Bills.
100%. Yeah, it's an absolute gauntlet. We kind of knew this for the last, maybe month and a half, 2 months.
It's
that
trended that way for a while. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Terrifying, but fun.
I think we've put off talking about this week long enough. You know, like we all shake our heads like this. Patty, I mean, is there anything that you absolutely love this weekend? Because I had a hard time going up and down this list and finding 4 best bets. I'll tell you that.
There's a couple that I really like, but I wouldn't put the love sticker on it by any stretch of the imagination. And I think this is the type of week where you just kind of target the teams and the players that mean some things. So if a team is fighting for higher seeding or still battling for a playoff spot, or I'm sure you guys might talk about it on your super show when you get into the props. There are some incentives for a lot of these players to hit in terms of certain stats. So when it comes to player props, I'll certainly be playing that. But for some of the games that I like, it's crazy to say, but I like the Jags at -6.5 against the Titans. I know this is such a high stakes game, but just the way these two teams match up. And I know the last time they played, it was the Titans who came out big, but this is a different Jags team. Like in the last 3 weeks, they've been one of the best teams in the NFL, especially offensively. And the Titans are dead last in defending the pass. They've have the worst opponent's yard allowed. The Jags have scored 30 points in their 30 of their last 4 games, and they're second in net yards per play over their last 3 games. The Titans are falling apart. Joshua Dobbs, I think, is under center. I have zero faith in him covering anything. How healthy is Derrick Henry? We don't know. And the Titans are 0-5 and 1 against the spread in their last 6 games. So I think I really like the Titans. And talking about those incentives, the Jags against the Titans. Talking about those incentives, Christian Kirk needs 91 yards to hit his 1,100 yard season. And he gets $500,000 added to his bonus for that. So we talked about how Titans cannot defend the pass. So if the Titans are able to use that to their advantage, because sometimes, yes, these incentives, the players certainly want to hit them. But at the end of the day, the team's more focused about winning the game. But this actually might help him get his incentive, and also it exposes a weakness of the team they're playing. So Coolbet, we've got an exclusive. Kirk, 91 plus of yards in the air, plus 285. So you can find that at the exclusive tabs. It is incentive season. We're going to have a few of these exclusive. That one there, I'm going to be hammering it 100%, and that's already live on the exclusive tabs.
Oh, I see. I got one from my guy Mahomes.
Yeah.
400 plus passing yards at plus 525. Why the heck not? In Allegiant Stadium, he owns the AFC West, especially on the road. Wouldn't be a bad way to finish off the season and get ready for the postseason with another massive game to cement the MVP. Shout out to everyone that got on at 8-1.
Well, it's going to be an interesting week. We're going to dive into it now. Patty, as always, buddy, really appreciate the time, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Pat.
No problem. Before I do go,
yeah,
Dusty, go Lions. At least cover the spread. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, go Rams first. Go Rams first, and then
yes,
go
exactly.
Lions. Yeah, well, I go Lions either way, I guess. All right, Patty, we'll talk to you next week, bud. There you go. That's Pat Gregoire from Coolbet Canada. And Haas, we got lots to get to here. A little super mega episode. We got our partner parlay, which is already live. So we'll lay that out for you here in just a second. We got some other parlays. We got some TD scores. And, of course, we do have our best bets of the week, which we're going to get to here right away. And Pat kind of laid it out. It's kind of got to look for games that mean something, hey, us, and try to dive into that, because there's a lot that don't mean anything, and it's really tough to get a read on what even those lineups are going to look like.
Yeah, well, and that's, certainly doing these picks a few days out for this show. I mean, I sort of went the same similar way, kind of focusing on some games and some teams that did certainly have some meaning. And I'll run mine down. I'll start off with Jacksonville. And listen, I know a lot of smart people that I respect that are on the other side of this game saying that it's just too many points. And in any other scenario, I think me from the way I've picked all year long, I'd be on the underdog in this game, and I would be taking the points. I'm not doing that this weekend in week 20. First of all, the way these two teams handled week 17, I think, told us a lot. Tennessee has been literally grasping at straws right now at the end of their season. They have no quarterbacks. Malik Willis, they said, oh, we're going to rest him for this Joshua Dobbs that they just picked off the Lions practice squad. And now apparently he's going to be the starting quarterback with their season on the line in week 18 against the Jags. That blows me away. I mean, the one thing right now, defending Tennessee, it's 8 guys gang tackling Derrick Henry. And other than that, let this guy create a miracle. And oh, by the way, on the other side of the field, you got Trevor Lawrence, who's playing the best football of his career. Travis Etienne, the aforementioned Christian Kirk with a big incentive available. Listen, I think the Jags win this game. I would love to get it at a bit lower number, but I don't mind them winning by a touchdown in this game. And as I said, I think this is Tennessee. There's the potential of this being an absolute blowout. I'm just not sure that what's left of the Tennessee Titans. And oh, by the way, Treylon Burks, their one competent receiver, he left practice this week and is questionable for the game as well. So there's not a lot going in the right direction for Tennessee. If they win this game, this is going to be another example why Mike Vrabel is the miracle worker of the National Football League as the head coach for the Titans. That being said, I don't think it's happening. Jags to win. And of course, that would also be very nice because you recall that last second Jags to win the AFC South at 7-1 in the lock up right before. So we're waiting in on that one. So I'm starting off with Jacksonville -6.5. Then let's go to this Pittsburgh game. Pittsburgh, Cleveland. I know this is sort of the Browns Super Bowl. The ability to go in and spoil the Steelers party. They did this a couple of years ago with Baker Mayfield. You remember Baker had the big win and then they beat them in the playoffs as well. To me, this is payback on a new era of Steelers football to a new era of Browns football with Deshaun Watson that, to be honest, I haven't been that impressed with. Cleveland's known that they've been out for a little bit. They're already on to next season. As much as this rivalry means a lot, I got way more faith in Mike Tomlin and in the Pittsburgh Steelers dressing room with what they've shown so far this year than I do in Cleveland. This game is going to be at home. And quickly, credit where credit is due. Kenny Pickett's good, Dusty. I mean,
he is good. He's settling in. They were very smart to be patient with him.
You know what? And I mean, 2 weeks ago, they had that big comeback win against the Ravens. Or they beat the Ravens last week. They had the big comeback win the week before. I'm really impressed with Pittsburgh. And let's face it, they still got TJ Watt. They've still got a great defense. And as we all know, Mike Tomlin doesn't have losing seasons. He's never had one in 15 years. And guess what? They're 8-8 going into this game. I might feel a little better taking this game on the money line, but we're picking spreads here. If it's under 3, I'm taking Pittsburgh -2. Now, who's going to be the spoiler this week? That's the other question I was asking myself when I went through these lines. And I focused in on this Rams-Seahawks game. The Rams are fascinating. They were one of the most disappointing teams this year. Let's not forget, they were the Super Bowl champions last February, and it's all sort of fallen apart. That being said, since Baker Mayfield showed up in Southern California, they've actually resembled a pretty competent football team. And I think the energy and the second chance that Baker has received is sort of spreading out within the club. Cam Akers is another guy. They were trying to get rid of him earlier this season. He's come back and played. And they're going up against the Seattle team at home that has all the pressure on their shoulders to make things happen. And listen, Geno Smith's had an incredible year. I'd probably support him for comeback player of the year. But I kind of think that Sean McVay is going to try to erase much of the stench of the disappointment of this season for the Rams with one big performance to spoil the party for their division rivals, the Seattle Seahawks. This is a big number right now. And I don't have a lot of confidence that Seattle's beating anybody by that much. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win this game. But I'll tell you what, I think the Rams are going to compete right to the end. I think Baker Mayfield wants another opportunity to have a great game to remind people that he can play in the National Football League. So I'm going to take the Rams +6 in that game on Sunday, which leads to my final pick. Again, you know, I have not had a good success picking the Chiefs this year. I try to avoid picking the Chiefs. but I couldn't not have them on this. And, you know, we talked a little bit with Pat about the entire DeMar Hamlin situation. The Chiefs have been involved in this as a spectator, but very much impacted by everything that goes on in the cancellation of this game. And they've got their arch rivals, the Raiders, standing in front of the bye. We all know Kansas City sometimes, to be perfectly honest, gets bored in some of these games. They'll take a quarter off. A team will come back that has no business doing it. We saw it happen last week with the Denver Broncos, although Russ was good and that team was fighting. I just think this is a statement game for the Kansas City Chiefs. Amongst everything else that people have been talking about, they're lucky to get the 1 seed, all about it. I think they go in and are in a playoff mindset. And they've learned some hard lessons. They learned it last year in the playoffs against Cincinnati, blowing that 21-3 lead. And there's been a couple other times this year where they've had games that should not have been close that are. I don't think this one is. I think Mahomes puts an emphatic stamp on an MVP season. And I think the Chiefs cover the 8.5 on the road. So taking 3 favorites, Chiefs, Jags, Pittsburgh, and I will happily take 6 points with the Rams on the road. And I see the Rams also in your top 4, Dusty.
Well, in Pittsburgh as well. I mean, just a little preview of the partner parlay that we're going to get to a little bit later on. I'll quickly hit on those 2 games that were both on here. I mean, Tomlin, you said it. Tomlin doesn't have losing seasons. He's at home with a team that's been trending in the right direction, with a team that is kind of in no man's land in the Cleveland Browns. Like prior to Deshaun Watson taking over, the Cleveland Browns were, kind of had a little bit of an identity. Since they brought in Deshaun Watson, I don't know exactly what the Cleveland Browns are. So I like Pittsburgh at home here. Inside a field goal for sure. I think Pittsburgh wins this game by 3, maybe 6. So I like Pittsburgh minus 2.5. I'm going to get in on the Rams now. Seattle's 2-5 in their last 7. One of their wins was a 4-point victory over the Rams down in Los Angeles. That was pre-Baker Mayfield. This isn't a situation where, the Rams are playing with a quarterback that's got nothing to prove. I mean, Baker Mayfield can go out here. If he can pick up a win, if he can cover for us, great. But if he can go and pick up a win, that's huge for him as well as he continues to try to look for a job somewhere next season. So I do like the Rams inside 6 here against the Seahawks team that has kind of pissed their season away over the last 2 months. And then I got 2 other games that I'm on. And I'll get to Tennessee in a second because I'm the lone. I'm like Patty laid it out for Jacksonville. You laid it out for Jacksonville, and I totally understand where you guys are coming from. It's a big number. We'll get that in a second. I'm going to be on Detroit here +5 because no matter what happens in that Seattle game, this is still the biggest game that Detroit's played in years. Whether Seattle loses to the Rams and Detroit can still actually make the playoffs, huge game. If Seattle beats the Rams and Detroit can play spoiler for the Green Bay Packers, also a huge game for the Detroit Lions and a game that Dan Campbell will have his team up to play. I saw a couple days ago, he's like, it doesn't matter what's on the line. We're going out to win this football game. And they have a chance to do that. And Packers have won 4 in a row. They beat the Vikings rather handedly. So did the Detroit Lions. Outside of that, 2 of those other 4 wins have been against just garbage teams. So I don't know if the Packers have figured it out during this 4-game winning streak or they've just been playing well enough to get some victories. But I am going to go Detroit here +5. I think they can win this game outright, even if it doesn't mean anything, man. Spoil the party for Aaron Rodgers. We've never had a chance to cheer for that as a Detroit Lions fan. This would be huge for us just to deny Rodgers from the playoffs.
And to be honest, I'm not sure that I don't like their chances more if Seattle actually wins and knocks them out. And I think Green Bay might say, okay, no longer is it a game. I have zero doubt in my mind that the Detroit Lions are going to play this game as if it was the Super Bowl. This is their Super Bowl. Whether they make it through or not, I like this. And obviously, we want to have an interesting game on Sunday Night Football in Week 18, and we got an interesting one. That being said, it is a joke, and you could maybe touch on this. This might be part of the reason why you like Tennessee. It is a joke that the NFL made the Jags-Titans game the Saturday night game when you consider that Tennessee played on Thursday, Jacksonville played on Sunday, and the Jags really are getting screwed a little bit. This would not happen to the Dallas Cowboys. This would not happen to the top teams in the league. But you know what? Jacksonville can go a long way to getting into that group if they can win. But you're liking the points and the Titans.
It's a 6.5 is a pretty big number. And the one reason Tennessee has, I mean, what have they lost? 6 in a row or something like that? Like they've been awful. They've also been extremely banged up. If you go and look right now, they're getting a lot of these bodies back. In fact, in a weird way, depending on which previews you read for this game, they've been sitting these guys as long as they could to get healthy for this game, knowing that the lead that they had, this was going to come down to this game. I think Bud Dupree just came off the IR. They've got a bunch of other guys who that basically, outside of Ryan Tannehill, this is as healthy as the Titans have been in the last 2 months. And they basically planned it for this one game against the Jags. Now, offensively, they're going to need to have a massive game from Derrick Henry. But Derrick Henry's capable of having a 150, 200-yard game and leading his team, carrying his team to a victory. So Vrabel's also 70% against the spread when he's a dog of more than 3 points. So he's had the ability in his entire career as a coach to keep things close. So this is not a vote of confidence in Dawes, but this is a vote of confidence in the Titans getting healthy, especially defensively, which I think will go a long way against that Jags offense. I think when the Titans defense is healthy, which they appear to be darn close to being 100% healthy, as healthy as you can be, I guess, at this time of the season. I think when you look at the 4 units on the field, I think the Titans defense, when healthy, might be the best unit on the field for either of these teams. So I'm going to ride with the Titans defense. I don't think they win it because I do think Trevor Lawrence eventually finds a way to get this thing done. Like, Trevor Lawrence should not lose a game of this magnitude to Dobbs on the other side. But I do think the Titans getting their defense healthy, the success that Vrabel's had in these spots in the past, should help them cover the 6.5. And also, I would love for the Jags to be in the playoffs. I don't want the Titans anywhere near the playoffs. This just seems very much like a Titans thing to do, to run the ball down a team's throat, squeak into the playoffs, and then get eliminated in the first round. Like, that's just what this feels like to me.
I mean, listen, I think Mike Vrabel gets more out of less than almost anyone else in the National Football League, and this would just be perfect Vrabel to start a quarterback that he plucked off the Lions practice squad 2 weeks ago in a must-win game, and then have the guy start in the playoffs for them before they get bounced in round one. Anyways, that's Saturday night, folks. Don't forget, actually, 2 of my picks are Saturday. Chiefs 3:30 in the afternoon, or at least Central Time, and then Jacksonville and Tennessee on Tuesday. And then we'll wait for the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers in the night game on Sunday to figure out how things all shake out. And we should have some clarity, hopefully by the end of today, on exactly how the AFC playoffs are going to work, neutral site game, all of that. Partner parlay, nice number today.
Here is the partner parlay. Yeah, we got a 3-gamer. We've already talked about all 3 of these games. I did move Detroit as my pick from 5 to 6. So you get Detroit +6, the Rams +6, and Pittsburgh -2.5. I was a little surprised when Pat got back to me. He's like, hey, it's +625. It's already live. So if you want to go to coolbet.com right now, you'll find it in exclusives. Just click on Lock Shop Exclusive, and you'll find this partner parlay just sitting there. Detroit +6, Rams +6, Pittsburgh -2.5 at +625. Because that's a really good number for these 3 games. 3 games that we like. And you like Detroit was one of your options for this too, right? When I saw that, I was on them as well. I was like, we got to get them in here.
I was fine with Detroit. Listen, they're not gonna get punked like the Vikings did last week. I know you were overseas and didn't see that game. It was one of the most bizarre games I can remember. I mean, the Vikes go all the way down, get stopped on the goal line, kick a field goal, kick off. They return for a touchdown. 7-3 Packers. They've done nothing. The Packers were up 14-3 and had -15 yards of offense at one point because it was a pick 6 that put them up 14-3. And then, there's score effects, there's game score. It all came crushing down on the Minnesota Vikings. Although, you know what's funny, Dusty? And we didn't really touch on the Vikings. They've obviously got this game against the Bears this weekend. Come playoff time, they might very well be home underdogs. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I mean, I guess if they're playing the Giants, that could very well be a pick 'em. I mean, they had to beat them on a 61-yarder with Greg Joseph a couple of weeks ago. The Vikings play terribly, get blown out, and then win a bunch of close games. Don't be surprised that this is the start of another Vikings run. I'm just saying. But we'll know what the matchups are next week for a massive playoff show.
Should be good. Very much looking forward to it. Wait a minute, the playoff run we went on last year, I think I was perfect and missed the Super Bowl by 0.5 points. Would have been a perfect run. That would have been something else. All right, let's get into, we've got our other parlays that we're going to dive into right now, and then we've got some touchdown scores for you as well. Let me just snag our other parlays that we've got. Here we go. We've got 4 more parlays that we're taking a look at here. Huss, you got a couple of 2-gamers. I like this.
Yeah, I did. I've got a 2-gamer totals, and I've got a 3-gamer. And listen, we've talked about the Chiefs game. I mean, I'm just kind of using it at the line right now. Buffalo was last night when I was doing this, and it was somewhat late. It was 7. Okay, it's still 7 right now. So I did get it to Buffalo -6.5. Just got that extra half point. So Bills by a touchdown. And the other game I adjusted slightly is the Texans. Now, the Texans are -118 at +3. At 3.5, it goes to -133. For the purposes of this bet, I got the extra half point both with the Bills and the Texans. We've talked a lot about the Bills, but I do think that they will have a special renewed sense of purpose playing in this game. I do like them to win, and emphatically over the New England Patriots, who I think are just in a different class than the Buffalo Bills. Talked about the Chiefs. And this Texans game is interesting. Texans were one of the teams on my horrible card last week. But, man, they're going up against the Colts. And the Colts are very much in next year territory. I mean, Jeff Saturday, I hope he enjoys this afternoon on the sidelines, because I can't possibly imagine the Colts deciding to go forward with him as the head coach next year. And he'll probably be back with ESPN by the time the playoffs begin. But Houston, outside of last week, like leading in, Chiefs in overtime, Cowboys right to the limit, a win the week before against the Tennessee Titans. Like, I've been really impressed. This team hasn't quit at all, and I don't think they will in this game. So getting 3.5 against a terrible Colts team, I like that one. So Houston is in. God, that might mean I have to watch some of that Houston Indy game. I'm not sure whether I'm ready for that. But Bills, Kansas City, +521. And then there's 2 totals that I like. We've talked about this Rams-Seahawks game. I think both of these teams are going to score points. I really do think that Baker Mayfield's going to have himself a day. I think Sean McVay is going to be ready to try and make the most of this season and end on a high note. And we've seen what the Seahawks have been able to do at home. I thought that this number was quite low at 41.5. So I'm taking over Rams-Seahawks. And then this game, and we've talked a lot about Green Bay and Detroit on Sunday night. I think this game is going to be part of the reason why I like your pick of Detroit plus the points. I think this game is going to be real touch and go. I think we're going to be interested in the outcome until the fourth quarter. And I don't think it's going to be some crazy shootout with both teams going for 35 points, although they are capable. So taking under 49 Packers, Lions, over 41.5 Rams, Seahawks. That one comes out to +268. Where are you going?
I really like that over 41.5 and that Rams Seahawks game. I think that should be a high scoring game. I moved these lines half a point, all 3 of them. Carolina to +3.5, Houston to +3.5, and the Jets to +3.5. It's at +468. It looks like Skylar Thompson is going to be starting for Miami with Teddy Bridgewater out. Miami's completely falling apart. I saw people thinking they might fire the head coach. I don't see it. I mean, it seems like I read an article the other day. They're like, rumors are that they might clean out the whole staff. I'm like, come on, this guy's the best thing they got going for him right now. So you just laid out the case for Houston +3.5, and then I'm going to take Carolina +3.5. Carolina, this sounds bizarre, but their offense has actually been pretty decent since Sam Darnold took over. I don't know what it means. But I do know they're playing a Saints team that's, both teams have actually played somewhat better football as of late than they had earlier in the year. But I'm going to get on Carolina +3.5, Houston +3.5, and the Jets +3.5. That's +468. If you want to run them all where they're at right now at the 3, then I think it's more like plus high 5s if you want. So I've got that one. And then I've got a money line parlay. We talked about Pittsburgh. I'm on Pittsburgh money line, Buffalo money line, and then Detroit with the money line +574. So that would just be, that's total Lions fan being like, I like Pittsburgh this week. I like Buffalo this week. If Detroit can knock off the Green Bay Packers, I might as well cash in at a +574 number, Huss. So let's do it.
Tell you what, you may as well throw the Rams money line in there too and book them to the playoffs while you're at it.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. The Lions make the playoffs money line parlay. That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
And let me just say about that Carolina pick, you will notice that I haven't even brought the Panthers up right now. They were not on any of the picks. I still can't believe what happened in the fourth quarter. I mean, they were up. They had the ball. They were in control of the NFC South. And they just completely collapsed. Mike Evans, all the Mike Evans owners that were pissed off, the guy never got in the end zone all season long. Oh, yeah. 20 points for the Bucks in the fourth quarter. They do it again. Listen, I can't wait to bet against them in the playoffs, I'll be honest, but they are going to be there. But, man, I thought that we were so close to seeing Carolina create one of the most amazing in-season turnarounds ever under Steve Wilkes. And I hope Wilkes gets that job, and he's the guy going forward. I think he deserves it.
Yeah, I think he'll get it. I mean, with what they've done lately, it's a tough way to go out there last week. But, all right, touchdown score, Sus. I got two here. I got Jamal Williams in a revenge game against the Green Bay Packers at plus 125, touchdown coming for the Detroit Lions. And then let me ask you about this one. Is McKinnon being dialed back this week or what? Because he's at plus 138. 3 of his last 4 games, he's got 2 touchdowns, and he's got touchdowns in 5 straight. I'm trying to figure out why this guy's still at plus 138. Doesn't make any sense.
I don't think anyone's going to be dialed down this week, honestly. I think there's a good chance the Chiefs aren't going to be playing the following week if they do win this game and they get the bye and the 1 seed. And as I say, I think the Chiefs finish this season very strong. And listen, Mahomes, the versatility of McKinnon is the reason why he keeps getting these touchdowns. I mean, sure, you want to take down Kelsey, you want to double cover Juju Smith-Schuster or whatever you're going to do. Oh, no problem. We'll just have this little scat back run out of the backfield. And it seems like he is so good with the angles. Mahomes is so good at hitting him where he needs it just to get 1 foot outside the guy and get it in the cone. I don't mind McKinnon at all. And I think, honestly, as much as Pacheco has been pretty good running the football, now that we're getting closer to playoff time, and I do think this is going to be a dress rehearsal from what we see the Chiefs in the playoffs, I think McKinnon's going to see even more opportunities going forward because he is so reliable, so versatile, and his work and his results speak for themselves since he's become a far bigger part of the Chiefs offense.
I don't know if I've ever been so proud of a fantasy stash in my entire life as Jerick McKinnon. I must have said 8 times throughout the year, like, hey, you might want to stash McKinnon. You might want to stash McKinnon. He's RB2 since week 12. Like, it's insane what he's done and how that patience has paid off, man. It's just nuts.
Yeah, if you want to make a good promo for the fantasy football extravaganza next year, just go back to like week 8 and week 9 with our pickup of the week. Not a lot out there, but I'm telling you guys,
pick up Jerick McKinnon.
Going to be a little more involved in the Chiefs offense. I think we were at least 2 to 3 weeks before he broke out getting in on that, because I think I gave him a back-to-back weeks beginning. Just, maybe I follow the team so closely, but it was pretty clear that Edwards-Helaire was out. And the minute that happened, it seemed like the door was opening for Jerick McKinnon. He's never going to be a guy that's going to get 25 carries. Guess what? It doesn't matter. He'll get the touches and he'll have the opportunity to go forward. Speaking of touches, Najee Harris was just an absolute beast last week. I wasn't very high on him. I didn't take him in fantasy. I hadn't been paying too close attention early on in the season, but it's pretty easy to see how disappointing things were going early on for Pittsburgh. But that was partly offensive line. That was partly quarterback. Things are different now in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett is a big part of it, but man, Najee Harris was a man on a mission last week. And I was really surprised to see him getting plus money in this situation in a game that they absolutely have to win to keep their playoff hopes alive against the Cleveland Browns team that at times has been horrible stopping the run. So Najee Harris plus 120. And I went off the board a little bit for a bit of a longer shot. And this is a guy that we actually talked about fantasy football wise later on in the season, is Chris Moore. Now, he hasn't really been a very impactful guy in many games so far this season. But when you look, he's actually played 15 games. He's got 46 catches. And a big part of it, Brandon Cooks is still the leading receiver for the club, but not by much. And he's been dialed back. And again, Houston's into next year territory. And I don't think Cooks is a big part of the future. I'm not sure about Chris Moore. So in this divisional game, I think he might be rewarded for his play so far, maybe with a few more looks. And I do think that they win this game as well. So when I saw that, in my opinion, who will be the number one target for the Texans at 3-1 in a game indoors against the Colts, I'm all on it. So yeah, Chris Moore plus 300, a little bit of an obscure guy to throw in for the touchdowns, but I like it. I've bet it, and we'll see what he can do in the final week of the season.
A jam-packed NFL Week 18 super mega episode, 45 minutes to get you set for Week 18. And, of course, back to regular programming next week. Now, with the NFL changing a little bit, we'll discuss it, but we got golf picks, we got NHL picks, we got a bunch of different stuff that we're going to be doing moving forward here from week to week with the Lock Shop, and it should be pretty fun. I'm looking forward to getting this week out of the way and diving back into the NFL playoffs, because in the playoffs, we're picking every single game. So be ready for that. It should be fun.
Hey, and by the way, I'll give you a little tease here, folks. Make sure to go back and check the exclusive. Lock Shop Partner Parlay is up there as well. I am going to fire something over to Pat and Jake and try and get it up. It is the Bears are on the clock exclusive. Minnesota to win and the Texans to win, which would mean that Chicago gets the number one pick in the draft. I'm not sure that Houston cares very much, at least the guys that are playing right now, and they're plus 125. I know the Vikings are minus 333, but I wouldn't, like, if you just did it like there, it's plus 193, but I wouldn't be surprised if that number shows up at a little bit better in the exclusive. So just a heads up, Bears on the clock exclusive. We'll try and get that in heading into Sunday.
Enjoy Week 18 in the National Football League, and we will talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend, Lock Shoppers.
Playoffs next week.